Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So I've recently had somebody ask me to do a video about the Treasury dollars versus M2 money supply and why it is that Treasury dollars are increasing and the M2 money supply is diminishing. And now I got to thinking about this, and I'm not exactly sure where it is that this Treasury dollars is getting their numbers from as far as the United States debt clock. Now, are they talking about short-term Treasury notes, Treasury bills like T-bills or something like that? Or are they talking about like U.S. Treasury notes, like ones that were issued from the United States Treasury, much like this one that I'm holding in my hand? You see this red dot right here? It's different from a Federal Reserve note that typically has a green dot. Now, these United States Treasury notes, from what I understand, haven't been in circulation or been put into circulation for quite a number of years, from like, say, the 50s or 60s. Now, when I think about short-term treasuries, I do think of them very much similar to cash. Now, when you think about like a T-bill, like a 1 month, treasury, then you have something that is very, very close to cash. I mean, within 30 days, it'll have matured and you'll be back in cash again. And so when you're holding on to a 1 month T-bill, you're really holding on to something that is pretty much the equivalent of cash. Now, a lot of times when you find international trade or people just doing transactions in general, they are using United States treasuries to facilitate that trade, because when you hold U.S. treasuries, you gain a little bit of interest. So holding on to cash can be costly, having bank accounts and trying to transfer funds, but transferring or using treasuries actually has a benefit since it pays that little bit of interest to you. So I can see where treasuries get used like cash and can be considered somewhat like dollars, but United States Treasury notes like the one that I'm holding in my hand now, I do not believe is what the United States debt clock is indicating when it's like showing that the number is increasing. Now, M2 money supply, this is very different because this is showing not only Federal Reserve notes, cash, bank deposits, IRA accounts, things, money market accounts, things that are very close to cash. It's more on the Federal Reserve side of things, not necessarily the United States debt side, right? The United States Treasury debt is different from what the Federal Reserve is doing. The Federal Reserve is the issuance of fiat currency, much like this one that I'm holding in my hand. Now, it's really difficult to try and wrap your mind around all this different type of currencies. I mean, even the fact that there's two different types of notes out there, a United States Treasury note and a Federal Reserve note. That right there is like, mind-blowing for a lot of people to think about. But really, it was silver coins. That was the original currency, silver and gold. In fact, the United States Constitution says in Article 1, Section 10, no state shall coin anything but gold and silver as a legal tender in payment of debt. One of these things, right? Now, this is a silver Morgan from 1921. It was given to me by a viewer, My Tinfoil Hat. Thank you so much for bringing me this coin. And when you think about it, this is the original money, right? All the way back 5,000 years. Like, it doesn't matter what's on it. It's the fact that it's silver. The silver within itself has proven, because it's in my hand, that somebody had to go and work to try and get it out of the ground and mint it into this coin. It is proof of work built right into it, right? So what you are doing is you are holding on to a piece of the past work. When you hold on to something like this Federal Reserve note, you are holding on a promise to pay into the future. This one is a proof of work. This one is a proof that somebody should work or will work to pay it back. Right? It's a very big difference to think about. Now, when you have this silver coin in circulation, not everybody wanted to carry around silver. So what they issue out is silver certificates, which is essentially certifying that there is a coin sitting on a shelf somewhere. Think about this. It reads right here on this Federal Reserve note, it has this to say: Federal Reserve Note, the United States of America. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable for lawful money at the United States Treasury or at any Federal Reserve Bank. It is redeemable for lawful money. It says so right there. Right? Now, if it's redeemable for lawful money, what is it? It's unlawful money, or at least not lawful, right? It says down here, will pay to the bearer on demand $5. 5 of these, right? It says so right there at the bottom. Will pay to the bearer on demand $5. Now, if you look at the United States Treasury note, it says, this note is legal tender at its face value for all debts, public and private. Doesn't say anything about being redeemable for lawful money. But it does say down here at the bottom, the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $2. So in itself, this United States Treasury note is promising to pay $2. Or 2 of these, which certifies that one of these sits on the shelf somewhere. Now, when you think about what this one says, the certificate is legal tender for all debts, public and private. $1 is in silver payable to the bearer on demand. This silver certificate is from 1957. The United States Treasury note, issued from the Treasury itself, that is promising to pay $2, was issued in 1953. Before the silver certificate was. This United States Federal Reserve note, which is payable to the bearer on demand $5, redeemable in lawful money because it's not lawful, was issued in 1950. So the Federal Reserve note, the United States Treasury note, the silver certificate, and silver were all in circulation at the same time. And hardly anybody knew the difference between any of these. They all did and served the exact same purpose. Now, what I think is interesting about it is that Gresham's law eventually kicks in and took the silver coins out of circulation, along with the silver certificates. And because these things were redeemable for dollars, these were also eventually pulled from circulation, leaving only the Federal Reserve note. Pretty interesting to think about, right? This is how Gresham's law works. Even though these notes were issued after the Federal Reserve note was, right? Because good money is being chased out by bad money, the good money disappears, gets hoarded away, leaving just the bad money in circulation, the Federal Reserve notes. Now, a lot of times we hear people talking about how there's a new digital currency coming. And now I think about this new digital currency that's going to come in and replace our current system of using cash, right? Or bank deposits and transactions through interbanking transactions. But essentially, it's all based on cash. Now, take a look at the link that I leave down in the description to the Dollar Act of 2020 and look at some of the wording that they use inside of it. Because they're talking about creating a treasury dollar, right? But not paper dollar, one that's digital based, that trades 1-to-1 with the Federal Reserve note. Pretty interesting to think about, right? How all of a sudden you have multiple currencies rolling in the system, and what that means for the current system that is being used. So now when I think about the Treasury issuing out digital dollars that trade 1-to-1 with the Federal Reserve note, all you have to do is start making it convenient to use the Treasury dollars. Put out the narrative that the Treasury dollars are as good, if not better, than the Federal Reserve note. And if they trade 1-to-1, nobody's going to question it. And so long as it provides the liquidity needs that they are desiring, or even better yet, the incentive programs through stimulus packages or, welfare programs, then people will just naturally fall into the use of it, and you can pull the old system away. Think about that. It's pretty interesting. All three of these were in circulation, and in fact, 4 of them were in circulation all at the exact same time, doing the exact same thing. But hardly anybody noticed the difference, and some of them got hoarded away, leaving just the Federal Reserve notes. Now, I think again about some of the digital currencies that are coming into play, things such as Bitcoin. I have this token here that has some Bitcoin on it. Now, if you think about it, right? Now, if you look right here, this is a QR code to the public key that shows that there is 0.001 Bitcoin on this coin. Now, when you think about it, this coin is made of silver, and behind this little sticker is a private code, a private key to a Bitcoin wallet that holds the Bitcoin. This is able to then use as a Bitcoin transaction without actually without having to use a digital wallet. You can physically transfer Bitcoin. Now, it does involve a little bit of trust that nobody has compromised the private key behind it. But outside of that, you are now able to physically transfer Bitcoin in a transaction. And if you don't even want to consider it the Bitcoin, it has silver value because there's a 1/2 ounce of silver on this token. Now you think about it, this is a type of currency that can be used. But if it was to be put into circulation, what would happen? It gets pulled out and hoarded away immediately. So in order for a new currency to come into the system, even if it's a digital one, right? Even one is with a physical property like this one has, if you were to introduce a new currency into the system, it's going to have to trade 1-to-1 with the Federal Reserve note, much like a United States digital treasury dollar could do. It's pretty interesting to think about, really. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.